Very much, Shekharji, Rajiv Chawlaji, Ajay Singh friends, the friends and participants in this webinar. Really grateful to you for giving me this opportunity of addressing the gathering in the webinar. Uh, uh, if you think of it, you can appreciate that any program can be designed if we are able to provide attributes and uniquely identify three sets of uh, entities. One, the individual, for which Aadhaar is there and can uniquely identify the individual. Second is the family. And third is the habitation. For habitation, you have the LGD. It is the family where we currently lack a coherent system. It is not as if we didn't have. If you think of it, the socioeconomic caste census was an unique occasion when such a family system, such a family registry was wherein all the attributes of the members constituting the family, their economic status, their status with regard to the occupation, land holding, women, the heads of the households, the uh, possession of house, the category from which they come from, etc., all were captured. The survey was carried out somewhere in 2011 and 12. However, the data became available sometime in 2015 or so. Another area where the socioeconomic caste census had a problem. This was with regard to the urban data, for which the Ministry of Urban Development or Housing and Urban Affairs was not convinced about the accuracy and fidelity of the data, and therefore didn't accept the finding. However, in the rural domain, the many ministries came forward to work on the databases and the families identification that resulted out of the socioeconomic caste census. Ministry of Rural Development, for one, was certainly there. Then Ministry of Health and Family Welfare for its scheme on Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. The Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas used it for their Ujjwala scheme. So many uh, ministries utilize this databases. However, when other ministries also wanted to use this, they had some problems with regard to the universality of the database and the fact that the database was not updated. We need to appreciate that the family registries and family databases are dynamic in nature. People die, people take birth, people migrate, families split. So any such database needs to capture all these dynamic changes. There was an idea sometime in 2017 where it was decided that maybe SECC could form the basis of such a dynamic social registry, and a committee consisting of the Ministry of Statistics, Housing and Urban Affairs, NITI, Rural Development, and Registrar General of India was constituted, and they were given a terms of reference. But when it met last time, the census was near, and therefore it was thought that maybe it could ride on these census exercise. However, COVID came and everything got delayed, and that's how we are currently considering the issue of the dynamic social registries. Uh, the Even if the socioeconomic caste census had been updated, we needed to put in a place a system which could uh, uh, make this database uh, dynamic one. Many states have come forward, and Rajiv's own state, Karnataka, is one of them. Rajasthan has done some work in terms of its Jan Aadhaar. Haryana has also done by the name of Parivar Pehchan Patra, and Madhya Pradesh is also running a initiative called Samagra. So these states have their own social registry systems. Uh, so all these social registries have certain attributes which I will mention briefly. One is that there are registries which are backed by law. For example, Haryana one or the Rajasthan one are backed by legislation, while Kutumba and Samagra, they do not have legislative backing, but because of practice and the government's overwhelming encouragement of them, the system have now come in wide use, and therefore one lesson that we can draw upon is that any such social registry does not always need a legislation. We can probably work without legislation if the state government has the intent to carry this forward. Secondly, the base data has been different. For example, the Parivar Pehchan Patra is using the PDS database, and they have also done the field surveys. Kutumba has done the PDS as the base database. Madhya Pradesh did on the basis of the field survey. So people have started out from different databases and arrived at the family registry. The important point to note here is that it's not an exercise which will come in one shot. It's a exercise which will require some time, and everyone has to be committed. The modes of verification have differed widely among these states. Many have used field verification, some have used Aadhaar-based verification, and Kutumba has also widened the ambit and included the self-verification by citizens. I think the giving agency to the citizens is an important part of the exercise, and I would propose that the states also give agency to the citizens so that they could also on their own get themselves included, excluded, etc., out of the family databases. Uh, Prime Minister, in his interaction with the secretaries, desired that we go forward on the social registry, and today's webinar is a welcome step by NITI to implement that mandate, and I'm sure would be quite successful. As a part of this exercise, PMO constituted a committee led by Vinny Mahajanji, the Secretary of Drinking Water and Sanitation Department, and they submitted their report in about 4 to 6 weeks' time, and they recommended that central government needed to enable adoption of family registry by the states by providing guideline on minimum attributes, based databases, privacy and security principle, best practices, and support for knowledge sharing and capacity development. Some of the specific recommendations the committee include, while giving flexibility to the states to create their own family registry databases, standard guidelines should be shared with them to follow a common minimum framework. For definition of family and other database fields, guidelines from the center could provide a menu of attributes from which the state could contextualize according to their needs. METI may provide a platform for the states who may find it difficult to set up their own platforms. Sharing of best practices could be facilitated by the central government. The data could be updated by the owner departments as and when new beneficiaries are added or removed. Routine identification of inconsistencies could take place electronically when you do the verification, for example, with the database of income tax payers or GST payers, etc. So those could probably provide opportunities for the updation of the databases, and they could also probably include an element of periodicity or schedule for verification of the data fields. Uh, there are few things which I would propose for the state's consideration. It's an exercise which will take some time. So states should not uh, think that this will be done in about a month's time or 2 months time or 3 months time. It will require some lot of preparation, lot of persuasion, and lot of groundwork. Second thought which I would like to propose to the state governments is that as you use the database will get more and more refined. So more use is equivalent to more refinement. So uh, the states should encourage more and more departments to use the database. The third principle that and third thought and consideration which I would like to request the state governments to keep in mind is that the departments owning the databases do not cede ownership of the data uh, to the department which maintains the registry, nor do they forego responsibility for their data. So this responsibility remains with the states, with the concerned departments of the government, and they need to be actively working towards these areas. And strong ownership is needed, and champions are needed. But the benefits are quite good in terms of the uh, uh, the removal of inconsistencies, removal of inclusion and exclusion errors, removal, facilitation of the uh, individuals and families for accessing their benefits. For example, when you provide life cycle benefits, a person who turns elder, and if you have such a system which has the birth database data as well as the poverty data, and so nobody needs to do anything other than the fact that they are interested in seeking say, for example, benefits under national social assistance program, and then based on their eligibility and the state's own capacity to deliver without need for a long period of application and verification, the benefits could be granted. The states could also use it for better planning, outreach, and policy design. So all in all, it's a great area of work which makes it quite transparent. And for a modern state, it's quite important that we know our citizens, and such a social registry provides us an opportunity. Uh, I congratulate Rajiv Chawla ji for steering this work in Karnataka and demonstrating within his states and among other states that such a system leads to large scale benefits to the government and for the citizens. And today we will, by his presentation, look at the benefits that the Kutumba application was able to bring, and also the important design principles that underlay the exercise. I would again like to reiterate the commitment of the Department of Rural Development in sharing whatever data that it has of its different programs. We are also trying to ensure that all the databases that we have the SECC seeding as well as Aadhaar seeding. So we would be in a position to share that data with the state governments as and when they require it. So wish state governments all the success, and also wish that they embark upon this exercise at the earliest. Thank you very much.